everybody. Power of X-Men. We're with. Do you love Power of X-Men?
I love Power of X-Men. Of course I do. Do I? Yes, I do.
What's up, familia? Jean Grey, issue 1 by Louise Simonson and Bernard Chang is finally here. And we got feels. We got to discuss it. And of course, to discuss these feels, we had to bring in the big guns. My co-host over at Masters of Comic Books. Cool.
What is up? Hello. What is up? I'm the big gun.
You're player 1, bro.
Hell yeah.
How are you doing? What's going on, man?
I'm doing good. Been reading comics like always. That's all I do now is just read comics. So following Fall of X, kind of enjoying it. It's a mess, but still enjoying it to a point that I love it. So yeah.
How excited are you for Jean Grey issue 1? Have you been literally anticipating this title for like months?
Maybe not as much as you, but I love Louise Simonson. I'm a huge fan of her work. I've read some of her oldies stuff. I mean, she was a huge front runner with the Triangle era for Superman, so that's where I know her most of her work from, by introducing Steel during the Death of Superman stuff. X-Men is a little iffy. The only stuff I've read of hers from the X-Men, unfortunately, is the Inferno core issues and everything, but that was mainly because you did the book club for it a year or two ago. But anything she did with like X Factor or New Mutants is still very iffy with me, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm here with you, who is the knowledgeable man of that.
I mean, listen, I eat, breathe, and like everything Jean Grey. Louise Simonson, I love. She was obviously really key for the X-Men in the 80s. She defined a lot of what happened with Jean, Madeline, and the Phoenix. You know, I'm always apprehensive when some of these legacy writers come back to the books, and I'm just like,
yeah,
like for example, I'm a huge Joan Didion fan, right, on the literary front, but I don't want to see Joan Didion writing about today's world. I loved how she wrote, you know, during her time and period. So with Louise, I was kind of apprehensive about having her come back, but I think her writing and her understanding of Jean Grey as a person is incredible. I was very happy with that aspect of the issue.
Yeah, it's very surprising because Marvel's is really, for some reason, is really honing home on that like nostalgia sort of taste. And so they've been doing like those miniseries, like you had what's his name? Howard Mackie on Danny Ketch, Ghost Rider, or there was a new Fantastic Four by Peter David. They've been doing that a lot in the X-Men front too, with like X-23 and Storm right now. So
Extreme
it's surprising.
X-Men.
Exactly. So it's very
X-Men
surprising
Legends.
that they are bringing in some of the older writers. I mean, it's great they're getting work and stuff, but surprising that they're doing this for like the Fall of X and stuff. So it's it could be. I think the downside of that is it takes away the chance to bring in new readers for Jean Grey, because I might have had some like hard follows with this issue because I'm not so in tune with the Jean Grey history, and so like my continuity so far with that is pretty weak. I will admit it's pretty weak.
So I'm of two minds with this. One, I think, like, I was talking to someone on the back end, someone who always is sort of like our source and gives us a heads up on things. They talked about some of the issues they've done, like with X-Men Legends, Extreme X-Men, Storm, and they do that because I think the higher ups want to make sure that there are new readers who can still access the X books. But I don't think they understand that those aren't as accessible as one would think it is, nor do they capture the interests of diehard X readers like myself. Like we love Ann Nesenti here on the podcast, but I'm probably going to read Storm after the fact, you know, when I have a longer flight and all the issues are complete and stuff like that.
I would. I've read an issue or two. It's like, it's not bad. It's just like, I can't get into it at all. Yeah. Like, if this isn't pertaining to like Fall of X or any of the Krakoa stuff, I'm just going to not worry about it.
And, you know, historically, Marvel has always released like X-Men Origins, Jean Grey, or they've done like an anthology issue where they do 1 page, summaries of each of the characters to sort of, help new readers. But we live in an age of Wikipedia, TikTok, Instagram,
Well, in this
uncannyxmen.net.
in the streaming platforms like Marvel Unlimited. I mean,
Yeah,
you can easily access all that at just
yeah.
at your hand.
So
It's right in your pocket.
you don't need to do series like this anymore where it's like to get new readers. I mean, like
Hmm.
us, we just picked up an issue one day and we were so enchanted by what we read that we followed the thread. We pulled on the thread and we sort of went into the deep end and found our way out of there. So,
Hmm.
the one thing I can just say about Jean though, Jean Grey issue 1, is that I'm very surprised it reads more like a what if tale and not a
Yeah.
origin story, because this is not Jean's origin story. This is definitely Jean dead, looking at a seminal moment in her life and playing it out differently. And it pertains nothing to her origin, pertains nothing to an overarching plot. And then at the end, she kind of like burns it away and then goes on to presumably her next seminal moment that she's going to see play out differently.
Yeah, is that how each issue is going to play out? I mean, that's what I'm after reading this first issue. That's what I'm kind of thinking the rest of the series is supposed to be.
Yeah, I think that's what's so we know issue 2 is going to deal with, what if with the Phoenix, and Dark Phoenix. And I think if I remember correctly, we've outlined it before, but I think it's going to see if the Phoenix went to someone else. And then the third one is going to be Jean versus Madeline. So the first
Okay.
3 out of 5 issues, it's going to be her revisiting the Phoenix Force and then everything that's going on with Madeline. Um,
Okay.
Again, I don't know. We'll get into it as we go through the issue, but I don't know why they chose this route instead of doing a straight up like Jean revisiting her entire life. I'm on the fence if I would like this better as a what if, or if I would have liked to have seen Ghost Jean revisit her past as it happened and her
Yeah.
meditate on it and sort of do that origin story as you were just discussing. I have to see the entire series, play out
Yeah,
first.
yeah, yeah. I'm with you on that because this before we really get into it, it just doesn't feel like it has a sense of direction yet, if that kind of makes sense. Like
There
we
are a
just
lot of
saw like
nods and homages here that I
a
am really
lot,
happy
yeah.
about.
Yeah, but it just doesn't like when I finished it, I'm like, okay, what did I didn't feel like I learned anything. I just learned it was like a sort of yeah, like a big what if story. Nothing happened.
This is where I wish we had a strong editorial arm who would have been like, Louise, you're doing such a great job with Jean's voice. You're doing such a great job capturing the essence of Jean Grey. This is a really cool idea, but we needed to read a little stronger. Take that red editorial pen and be like, don't do a what if, do this. And what are we trying to say with this with Jean? I don't know what we're supposed to
Yeah.
get from this issue, as you said.
Yeah. Don't get me started on stuff like that though. I get really I Marvel's a mess and it's kind of frustrating.
Oh, it's extremely frustrating. But I want to know because in all of our years of friendship, I don't know if I've ever really gauged your Jean Grey, meter. Like, how do you feel about Jean as a character? What are your overall thoughts of Jean?
The reason you don't know a lot of this is because I'm trying to avoid that. But
I know I tried not to show my crazy Jean stuff when we were doing Masters of Comic Books because like you would be literally like, okay, I'm inching my way out of this conversation. Goodbye. I mean, you kind of
well,
saw it
that's
with Wanda. You saw it with Wanda.
oh, I saw it when you were talking about Gwen Stacy and like Mary Jane and stuff when we were talking about Spider-Man Beyond. So I remember that. But I like Jean as a character. I'm not as heavily in tune like with her history or her continuity. Like I've read I read Phoenix Resurrection by Matthew Rosenberg. I liked her in that. I read Grant Morrison stuff like to her death, but nothing else. I also read I read Dennis Hopeless's Jean Grey series, which I really liked. But
I like that a lot too.
yeah, because like all I've read is like the ones that I really remember of Jean Grey are from the series. Oh yeah, and X-Men Red. Maybe I have read more.
You've definitely
But
read all of her contemporary stuff.
I guess so. I read the important stuff
Yeah.
that is most well known, and I really liked her in those. So Yeah, I really like her as a character. And I think it's a huge, for me, it's always been hard to follow, and it's kind of a bit of a mess. It's hard to kind of enjoy it all together, though. You know what I mean? Because you have when like the Jean Grey series where she was brought back from the 60s X-Men and stuff, and then like comparing that to like the adult Jean from like Grant Morrison stuff, and when she was resurrected and back with Red and everything. I haven't read that all like cohesively together, but from what I remember enjoying it and everything. And usually I just use Wikipedia stuff to kind of fill me in.
Well, I will say from Phoenix Resurrection through X-Men Red, they don't really streamline the Phoenix mythos like Greg Pak did in Phoenix and Song. I think if you read Phoenix and Song, you'll have a better understanding of how all the Phoenix mythos sort of stream together. But at this point, that series, excuse me, came out almost 20 years ago. And it is the only example of a series that was able to take everything that happened in Jean's history and make it a cohesive story. Since then, there's a lot of discrepancies, right? Like at the end of Here Comes Tomorrow, Jean is very much alive in the White Hot Room and pushes Scott to be with Emma. But then in Tom Taylor's X-Men Red annual, Jean says, I was Phoenix, I burned bright, and then I was dead. Right? So, we know Jean wasn't dead, but, their stance has now been that she was dead in the interim period, even though we had manifestations of her in Phoenix and Song and AVX, for example, to name a few. So the Phoenix mythos is wildly inconsistent. My hope, especially with some of what I'm hoping are seeds planted by Louise Simonson, my hope is that the series is going to bridge some of that, because one of the things that frustrated me endlessly about Phoenix Resurrection is that there's no real reason why the Phoenix resurrects adult Jean or why it wanted teen Jean. I mean, Jean was dead editorially for 13, 15 years, whatever it was. And now all of a sudden the Phoenix wants her back. There is no reason as to why. And I hope the series will be like the Phoenix resurrected her because it knew something big was coming, and it knew that it was going to have to bring Jean back in order to protect the mutants.
Yeah, and I feel like what I think some of this intention of the series is to kind of bring the Phoenix more to the forefront for Jean and the X-Men, because the last time anyone has seen the Phoenix is when Echo had it, and boy, that made so many people happy. And Jason Aaron's Avengers.
I know you're being sarcastic there.
Oh, so sarcastic. I know so many people hated that Phoenix tournament. I loved it, but
I hated the Phoenix tournament. I know. I don't think we were friends yet. We went on Legion on Zoom, their podcast, and we reviewed it with them. And listen, Mortal Kombat with the Phoenix, I'm all for. Trust me, I love two things I love in life: Mortal Kombat and Phoenix. It didn't land as well for me. Neither here nor there for Echo having the Phoenix. I mean, I'm far more upset about the Phoenix being Thor's mom than I am of Echo having the Phoenix.
Oh yeah, and that too.
Yeah, I'd rather have the Phoenix be a mutant thing, right? Just pertaining specifically to the X-Men, and instead of expanding the mythos of the Phoenix, streamline it for people like you. You should be so excited that Jean is with the Phoenix. I mean, when I was growing up, the Phoenix Force was like this big cosmic entity. When it showed up, you knew something big was going to happen. Now it's kind of like, I think Mr. Scott Free said it. He's here like it's a cosmic STD now, and like anyone can get it. And now you're like, oh, why did I get it? This is just destroying my life. Let me pass it on to the next person. And
I would say AVX kind of ruined that.
Oh yeah. Well, AVX was just a lot of false promises to a story that started with Messiah Complex, and we thought it was going to culminate with a big X-Men story, and then the Avengers, because they were so popular in the MCU, kind of hijacked the story, and it kind of messed up the flow. But I will say
it was just a big marketing ploy. I'll say that.
Yeah, I will say the one good thing about AVX is that as an IP, the AVX IP has aged nicely. I'm sure one day if the MCU can get back on track, people would be so excited to have Avengers versus X-Men in the same way that they would be so happy to have House of M.
I doubt it.
But the story really sucks. It's not a well-written story.
No, it sucks, and it's long.
Yeah, it's very long. It's 12 issues, and it's inconsistent. Too many times. Yeah.
Well, and it's inconsistent because you have what 4 or 5 writers on it because
Hmm.
like Hickman's on that. Jason Aaron is on
Jason
that.
Aaron, yeah.
That's Matt Fraction,
Hmm.
Bendis, and there might be one more that I'm missing, but it's weird. It's weird. Like it's so weird.
I listen, my main grievance with AVX is why didn't the Phoenix Five attempt to repower the mutant race? That was why they believed the Phoenix was coming. That's why they were waiting for Hope to get it. They got the Phoenix. It could have just been a throwaway line where they were just like, oh, we can't do it. For whatever reason, we can't do it. So we're going to try to improve the world. They never
Mhm.
addressed the fact that the mutants wanted the Phoenix. The mutants very well knew very well that the Phoenix is a global threat, but they were willing to risk that global threat because they believed the Phoenix was coming back to repower the mutant race. So why didn't they try to repower it? That's it. It could have been just a throwaway line, and I would have been fine with it. But
It
okay.
didn't. No,
Do
no,
you
we're not. We're gonna turn into a rant.
stop it? Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Wait, I want to know more about your feelings of Jean.
Yeah.
Jean with Scott or Scott with Emma?
I'm in two minds about this because growing up, I watched the movies and it was always Scott and Jean. But then when I started reading comics, it was always basically Scott and Emma because that's all I've read. Because for most of the X-Men stuff that I've read, Jean was dead
Mm-hmm.
and never really with Cyclops. So I'll probably say Scott with Emma because I'm more in tune with it, I guess. Like I'm more comfortable with it, and I kind of like Emma more than Jean, honestly, as a
Mm.
character. That's just my take.
I
Uh,
I like Scott with Emma. I think Scott and Emma work very well together. I think Morrison, they told a really good story of why Scott and Emma should be together and why Jean had transcended human emotions and the need to have human relationships because she was quite literally the white phoenix of the crown. She was a god. And I
that's a
love that
good
story for Jean.
character development between them too, because that really built up Emma's character from being like just a villain to like a very complex character that has a lot of conflicting emotions and um just a lot of history that she's kind of trying to make up for and everything, which I really like.
I agree with you. And I think putting someone like Jean is kind of like this is why I like Jean in the White Hot Room as White Phoenix operating on the cosmic level, because she's sort of I don't want to say near perfect because I don't think that's a fair way of looking at her character, but I think she is the kind of person who walks into a room and she's going to get everything resolved in the most honest, powerful way. It's kind of like this big force that comes in. Emma is a little bit more like duplicitous with getting stuff done. She has a good heart and she's trying to get stuff done, but she's going to go by any means necessary, right? And
Yeah.
that will cock a couple heads. So I think from an editorial standpoint, Emma's a little bit more interesting versus with Scott, where Scott's more of a Boy Scout, and Jean and Scott together are a little bit too perfect. You want sort of those
hmm
imperfect couples coming together.
Yeah.
So
You kind of need that conflict. Otherwise, it's just the perfect, like you said, the perfect couple, which I agree with.
so do you have a favorite Jean Grey costume? What's your favorite Jean Grey costume?
Favorite Jean, I honestly really like the X-Men red armor, like that you would see. I love that, honestly. It's
Everyone
probably my
loved it when it
favorite.
came out. I
hmm
liked
I
the
wish they could have
variation.
kept it into the Krakoa era.
So those early pages of Pepe Larraz, when House of X was coming out, those early like sketches, Jean was in the X-Men red armor. And then they switched it for whatever reason to the Marvel Girl armor.
What? Probably for nostalgia feel, I bet.
Yeah,
Kind
there
of
was
just
this.
forget about this weird age of X-Men is basically what they were trying to do. I bet you $1 million.
Yeah, so Hickman had said in an interview, why is she in that costume again? Think about the last time she wore it. And of course, when we were just finding out about, House of X and Krakoa, that the mutants can back up, and not only can they back up, they can back up earlier versions of themselves. So we thought at the time that Jean had backed up a pre-Phoenix version of herself. But that quickly went out the door because when she sees Storm after being resurrected, she remembers an X Factor moment during Inferno
hmm
where they sort of reunited. So, you know, I love the X-Men red costume. I wish they would have kept it. There was a variation of it in the giant size Jean Grey and Emma Frost, or was it Emma Frost and Jean Grey, whatever,
Either
issue,
one.
where it was kind of a green and gold version of that. And I wish that
Oh,
would be her
really?
main costume. Oh,
I gotta look
yes.
this up.
Oh my God. It is Cole. It is one of the most gorgeous costumes I have ever seen on Jean, and it was illustrated by Russell Dodderman. It looks so good.
Oh, damn. If it's by Russell Dodderman, then they should have used it. Let's see. Let's see.
Look
Let's
it
see.
up.
Let's
Look it up.
see.
Look it up. Look it up.
Oh, that's so cool. I love
I
that.
know. I know, right?
So did Dodderman design the costume?
I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know why she appeared in that. Dodderman
Well, because it
didn't.
says Ivan Coelho did the was the cover artist for that variant.
Wait, let me see let me see which image you're looking at.
This one. I don't know
Oh,
if you
yeah.
can
Yeah, for that variant cover it was, but for the main cover and the interior art, it's Dodderman.
Well, wait, I'm a freaking moron. I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't know what I'm doing. It's been a long day.
Listen, dude, it's Jean Grey. I mean, nothing's the same week to week. So
That's
okay.
true. I forgot about that. Yeah, because I even have that cover for that Hickman omnibus. But yeah, I wish they would have gone with that, or at least done like people always have a dozen costumes, and then they wore one for this issue, and they wore the next one for whatever. I don't know.
Should we dive into the issue?
Go right ahead.
All right. So we open up with a shot of Jean, and she's looking really out of it. It's just her face and her upper body and her long flowing hair. All of her hair is
locks
everywhere. She got the Jean Grey hair in this
beautiful.
opening shot. And she says, "I'm dying, but there's nothing new in dying, at least for me. Been there so many times before." It's very true. She goes, "But what about the others? I know there are others, just don't have a clue who they are, and time is running out. Do I know this, or is it just a feeling? Never mind. Forget what I don't know. Move on to what I do know. This is my fault. It has to be. Why else would I be here? So what did I do wrong? Think, try to remember. If I can understand, maybe I can fix everything." And then boom, Mind Maze, which is the name of this issue, is right there at the bottom of the page. And what we see is this splash reminiscent of All New X-Men issue 5, where Jean reads Hank's mind, and it's a splash of Jean's different memories, her life, everywhere from when Annie got hit by the car to baby Cable being in her arms, to Madeline Pryor, to Dark Phoenix, to the O5, to her learning her powers. And Jean is thinking that something happened in her past, and she's going to have to fix everything based off of this one moment, and it's going to help her save everyone on Krakoa and thereby, sidestepping the massacre. So she thinks it's the moment that the O5 go back to the past, and Teen Jean's like, "I'll see you guys on the other side," and mind wipes everyone. Or she doesn't mind wipe them. She locks their memories to be unlocked one day, is how they explained it in Ed Brisson's Exterminator. Was it Exterminator or Extermination? I think it's Extermination.
Extermination. Yeah.
Extermination. So Jean, Ghost Jean, like cradles Teen Jean and sort of, makes her decide otherwise. And they're going to keep their memories of their time in the present. And so what happens is they go to a danger room session, and they're able to easily plow through the danger room session because of everything they know in the past, everything they've been through. And Xavier comes in to be like, "Oh, Magneto is attacking Manhattan," but Jean's like, "I already knew that." And he's here like, "Of course you do. You seem really powerful." And she's here like, "Oh, all those psychic breakers you put in my mind, they're gone now, and I have a complete mastery of my power." And she's here like, overnight. And she's here like, "Shh, don't worry about it. Like, just don't worry about it." Me operating at full strength can only be a good thing. Yeah, I know, man. She like totally gaslighting Xavier here, which I love. So they go to face Magneto, and Magneto, is easily able to like grab them. He entangles them in, I'm sorry, I'm going to say tentacle porn, but he gets like these coils and like wraps them all up.
Going Doc Ock on his ass.
He goes Doc Ock on their asses. And so Jean is like, I've seen the future. I know the kind of terrorist you become. You're a fanatic. It's not going to lead anywhere good. And Cyclops is like, Jean, he may be wearing a helmet, but you're also a really powerful telekinetic. And Jean's like, oh, you're right. Bloom takes off his helmet. Which is something I think all of us have always thought. Like, okay, fine, you can't read his mind, but you're telekinetic. You can just lift up his helmet.
Yeah,
Pretty
literally
easy.
just a pop.
Pop. And so she lobotomizes Eric.
That's
I
what
don't know.
I'm guessing. Oh, like those pupils are small as hell, and it's just his eyes are white as can be, and he just freaking literally just crashes. And I'm just, well, because like later in the issue, they're like, "You brought him back." I'm like, "Did he die?"
Well, not only so listen, she literally mind wipes him and he falls head first on
Yeah.
the pavement. And he's
Wham.
literally his eyes are wide open, his pupils are really small, as you said, and Daddy Magneto is just there, like, and Cyclops is like, what did you do? You killed him. And Jean's like, no, I didn't kill him. Again, she's gaslighting Cyclops. She's like, shh, don't worry. Nothing's happening here.
God,
But
I would wish the panels just showed up where she's just shh.
like that, like just like whispering to people, like just stop talking. So then we move to news coverage by Trish, A-star reporter Trish, and Jean is using her powers to sway the public opinion, and that's something that she rationalizes because Xavier has done. And speaking of Xavier, he's none too happy with what Jean has done to Magneto. So she and the rest of the O5 are sort of out on their own using Warren's inheritance money. And they have this beautiful loft in Manhattan, which it has to be billions of dollars to even have. And
The lifestyle in New York is so poorly shown in movies and other media.
I have to tell you, we're trying to get an apartment back home because we moved to Miami, and a studio apartment now is over $3,000, and it's like insane.
That's too much.
It's too much. It's like you might as well just be lighting money. So how they afford this beautiful rooftop penthouse? I mean, I don't know many people who can afford this, even with that Warren Worthington money. So, but they're trying to use this enhanced cerebro to find emerging mutants, and Jean is able to find a hit, and it's a kid in a building. She's too far away to pull him out telekinetically, but Trask has set off an explosion and it goes off, and Jean tries to rescue him, but she can't. And so what happens is the same thing that happened to her when she was with Annie, and she was trying to save him, but she feels him die. And it's a very traumatic experience for her, sadly.
I really like how that played out too. Kind of like as a good parallel to what she's done in the past when she first found her powers and everything. So it's a great way how Simonson played up to staying true to her character and everything, even though this whole issue kind of shows her sort of being corrupt and stuff. It still shows what she's trying to do is be good at heart.
Yeah, I agree. And, to speak about the first half of this issue, I think Simonson really plants a lot of stuff here. I did record like a solo thoughts for YouTube, and I was like, I don't know if Simonson understands the larger story of recent X stories, but I think she understands the Jean parts of it very well, especially, her history, because one thing I wanted to point out in that first page and why I read all of those words is that she doesn't know how much time she has left. And that's something that we find out in Grant Morrison's New X-Men in Planet X, when Wolverine stabs her right as they're about to hit the sun and the Phoenix consciousness is released. She says, I don't know how long they'll let me stay. So, there seems to be in death this hierarchy with the Phoenixes, and that they report to someone, and Jean is always susceptible to them. And we saw that obviously at the end of Here Comes Tomorrow, when Quentin Quire is like, they told me to tell you to hurry. And, and speaking of Here Comes Tomorrow, I love that Jean is looking into the past for this one moment that something went wrong, because that's exactly what happens in Here Comes Tomorrow, where Jean looks into the past, like, where did this awful future start with, and it started with Scott walking away from Emma at Jean's grave. So that's why she telekinetically or telepathically, excuse me, pushes Scott to be with Emma. So that's what she's doing here. She's looking into her past to find that one moment where things went wrong. She was better at it in Here Comes Tomorrow, because as we know, spoilers for the rest of the issue, this is not going to be it. But
Yeah.
she thinks it's the '05 moment. And I really do like that. I think, I don't know how I feel about Teen Jean's characterization in this first half. I think Teen Jean has so much growth throughout her time in the present that this sort of regresses that quite a bit.
More than just a little bit. It's because, yeah, sorry, I interrupted you, but I'm 100% agree. That's why it was kind of weird reading this issue back, because I've read this twice, and it just like it regresses so, because that's where I know Jean the most is from when the '05 came back, like with Bendis's All New X-Men and everything. And so like there's no development at all. It's just too much regression. And I get this is supposed to play out as like a what if story, but like she just seems too brutal in her actions, in my opinion.
Well, because she learned her lesson. I mean, we had literally arcs and arcs of her mind reading people without their permission. Emma and the Cuckoos went to fight with her about this. We have the entire Battle of the Atom arc where they're like, Jean will turn out evil if she doesn't, check herself a little bit, right? And it almost feels like this is a Teen Jean from those first 5 issues that had yet to learn the lesson, because you think she would have been a bit more strategic with her power in lieu of just becoming a monster and mind wipe, being someone like Eric. And also, Eric in that present wasn't so much the monster that we saw in other parts of the 90s, right? Like Eric was very much on the uncanny X-Men team at that time that she was, and he wasn't as radical as someone like Cyclops, who was quote unquote radical at the time.
Yeah, but he led their team in X-Men Blue too, though.
Oh my God, yes! I forgot about X-Men. Me and like the rest of the internet forgot about X-Men. You're absolutely right.
Yay!
For once, kid, you're right.
Oh my God, I gotta document this.
Hey, it's recorded. Don't worry, you got it.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. This has got to be like a spotlight on your Instagram.
This is a soundbite for the episode.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'll go now.
No, I agree with you. So I think she's a bit too radical. I think she's a bit too militant. I like that there's limits to her power, that she can't just she has to be within some kind of proximity to the kid in order to pull him with his TK. I thought that was really lovely. And like you said, I think the homage to everything that happened with Annie versus now with this kid, it really does show how Jean is dealing differently than she probably would have as a younger self. I think that's what Louise Simonson is trying to do in this situation, that before feeling someone die would have killed her, here she's able to cope with it and propel forward.
Continuing the issue, so you kind of see more of Jean kind of regressing and kind of being manipulating more people as the issue goes on. Like, for example, like as soon as as Jean takes away the feeling of death from the little kid, the scene shows the aftermath of what the explosion was, and she's able to kind of go through people's minds and say it was a gas leak explosion to all the reporters and the firemen and stuff, and they're like thanking the X-Men, which we all know that would never ever happen. And then they go back to the most expensive base that you will ever find in New York. And they're watching Trask on the news and stuff, and the '05 are telling Jean Grey that what Jean's actions are not good, not a good thing. And then the Sentinels come in and they basically unleash all their firepower on Warren's most expensive base that they were at for 5 seconds. And so they decide to go and find mutant kids, their first one, and basically save them before anything bad happens to them. So the first one you have is Kitty Pryde, which I kind of like these little check-ins, and you have Sam Guthrie and stuff. And I like how they didn't take too much time in the issue to persuade them to get the kids. And I think that's to show that Jean can do this just on a whim, just literally within literally the next panel. You have Kitty's dad saying, my daughter a mutant? That's absurd. Get out. And then Jean says, I'm sorry to do this, but we have to hurry. And then next panel, he says, have fun at boarding school. Like, it's just that easy. And then, like, within this, I believe the same page, it's hard to tell within how I'm reading this. But and then, like, Sam Guthrie is literally up next. And then she changes his mind, and then he's done. So they gathered up a handful of kids and stuff to protect them and brings them back to the school. And we see that Eric is up and running again, back in his wheelchair, and they're playing chess with Charles, which is all nice and sweet and stuff.
And what's really interesting about that scene is that, and I'm curious why this beat even exists, but Xavier is like, Jean, you're turning into a terrorist just like Magneto here. And she's like, I'm nothing like him. And he's like, oh, give it time, my child. Give it time.
What is he gaslighting her now?
Oh, but it's really interesting to see that kind of conversation and comparing Jean's tactics to that of Magneto. It's just, I have feels.
I don't know.
We'll discuss when we're done.
Kind of just maybe show like how far she's not really fallen, or just how much she's trying to take control of the whole situation and not kind of letting it not play out is the wrong word to say, but like being too controlling, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
kind of
she is being very controlling. She's
approaching the chance. Well, and trying to approach the chance for mutants to live among the humans in a wrong way. So anyways, after that discussion with Charles, Eric at the school, we see that Beast approaches the reporter Trish. What's her last name? Is she a character?
Tibley.
Yeah, is she from X-Men before?
Yeah, she's been with them for a while. Not with them, but she's been a character in the series for a very long time.
Okay.
Great A reporting there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so sarcastic.
Oh, I can tell. But Hank grabs Trish to kind of set things straight of what Trask has really been up to and everything. And during that conversation, Jean comes in and manipulates her mind. Does she lobotomize her too? And then she does the same thing with Hank. And so like her powers are kind of getting out of control. From what it seems like. I mean, she takes over Trish's mind, Hank's mind, and to the point where it looks like the Dark Phoenix kind of comes out. Is that Dark Phoenix or regular Phoenix? I don't know.
I mean, listen, I think it's all the same. She's rendered as Green Phoenix, but it's clearly coming out from dark emotions.
Well, it's a very violent nature. Like she is like, I mean, she
ain't happy.
Keeps on. No, she's not, because she keeps on repeating herself, because Cyclops is saying that she has gone too far with this, and she's repeating to herself that I'm not a monster. I've been trying to fix these things. I'm not a monster. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm here to make sure everyone is safe and whatnot. And she goes crazy. Like, she has people jumping out of windows, and she just lets the Phoenix go basically crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, she unleashes the full force of the Phoenix, and she is motivated by I'm not a monster, I need to protect everyone. And she's like, I'm going to stop all of this anti-mutant rhetoric, right? Like, she just goes through everyone. And she says, if I'm to save them all, I need to become a bigger monster. I need power. And then she screams, we are one with the Phoenix.
Yeah.
Pretty big.
I would have thought that was bigger if I was more in with the Phoenix, I guess. I don't know. Sorry, my bad. I'm still learning. But then Charles, I love how Eric has his own nice little floaty wheelchair now. Now that Phoenix is basically unleashed, you have Warren, Bobby, Charles, and Eric going to go and stop the Phoenix. And they all have like their own little Cerebro to prevent the P-side attacks from Jean. And basically it's a big old fight scene. And does she practically, she practically kills them all.
Yeah. So she gets into a fight. She wants to protect mutants. She says, shutting the door, their leaders have to be answered. How else can I keep you all safe? So Jean wants to keep everyone safe. And she's really agitated. And she's like, quit talking, please go away. And then she just incinerates everyone.
Incinerates everybody.
The entire, everyone.
Yeah, not just the four, just everybody in general.
Yeah, the entire universe. And then it kind of pans out into a white room, and
Mm.
which is a white hot room. And Jean's like, well, that wasn't the answer.
Well, let's
Well,
try another one.
let's try another one. And so she looks at what could be the next moment where things went wrong, and it's a space shuttle flight. And that's where the issue ends.
So is that where the Phoenix comes in then? Like where the
Yeah.
Phoenix first? Okay, that's what I thought. I wasn't
Yeah.
100% sure.
Yeah, so this is like the space shuttle flight where the Phoenix comes to her and she agrees, to merge with the Phoenix. In story, or sorry, let's talk editorially from a historical standpoint. Jean was always meant to reemerge from the space shuttle flight as Phoenix. It got retconned to being a separate entity, and then it got retconned again to be that Jean touches, merges with the Phoenix, and like a sliver of her soul stays in her old body and is at the bottom of the Jamaican Bay. So let's see how Louise is going to play it out. But I'm more than certain Louise will do it justice. Couple of things I want to note here. When Jean gets really angry at everyone and incinerates them, that's also happens in a What If Phoenix story, except she does it to Kitty. She incinerates Kitty, and then she gets really worked up and she destroys the entire world. Jean looking at everything and being like, what happened here? This entire universe, is wrong. And she kind of like erases it. Again, that's very Here Comes Tomorrow, where she looks at the future that happened. She goes, I had to amputate the entire future. So Louise Simonson has definitely read Here Comes Tomorrow.
At least a handful of times.
I mean, some of us have. So what were your thoughts?
I mean, it was only by a very famous creator.
I mean, one of the best creators out there, not being biased towards them, but wait, so I want to know, what is your overall feel on this issue?
I actually I really liked it. I love the art. I think Bernard Chang does the story justice.
Agreed.
I really am a fan of their art. They did a Children of the Atom 2 with Vida Ayala that I really love the art to that book as well. And they do a really great job in bringing in like really defined lines into their characters and a really interesting aspect in the shadows and everything. And I think the figures and designs of everything look outstanding. I think the characters look great, and I love the framing of all the panels, and I think it does all the characters within this era justice. With Louise Simonson, I really think she understands the voice of Jean very well. I guess from everything that I've read so far, I think she does a great job. It's a decent like what if scenario, and the approach of Jean kind of going through very important historical events in her life to kind of figure out what went wrong is an interesting approach that I think will start to be fine-tuned as each issue plays out. But I think this was a decent first issue to kind of play out how this series is going to go forward and how Jean will most likely come back.
Yeah.
And
so we know she's coming back for sure.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. It was a little long, but I don't know if like all these issues are going to be like the oversized format like this one was. I mean, usually number ones are like the additional 2 or 4 pages than what they normally are. So we'll just have to see. But I dug it. I liked it. What do you think?
Yeah, listen, I don't think it's poorly written. I don't want...
Not at all.
Not poorly written by any means. I just think back to the first question we had is, I don't know what I'm supposed to take away from it, right?
Like
it's just a what if scenario. It's kind of cut away. Like, I think in Here Comes Tomorrow, there is a lesson there that we take away. But I remember, oh gosh, I'm forgetting one of the reviewers at the time. They had I think it was called like House of Ideas or something, reviews. Some guy who was also named Paul just talked about how he would rather be in the present than in Here Comes Tomorrow's timeline. And I will say that is probably what I'm going to echo here. I would rather just see Jean presently in the white hot room, sort of navigating things, than this what if scenario, because I don't know what I'm supposed to take away, that Teen Jean had a temper. Teen Jean was, overrun by her need to protect everyone, and it led to destruction.
Exactly. Because you don't peak in your teen years. You shouldn't. And so, like, kind of showing this old school story, it kind of just it makes it feel like a throwaway issue. And if everything's kind of just her looking through a past, which can be a decent concept, but if it's just her looking in the past and saying, nope, this one wasn't it, nope, this wasn't it, and then we don't find it until the last fourth issue, then I don't know, it kind of defeats any development in the series, you know? It's like the only issue that mattered was that last one.
Yeah, agreed with you. 100% agree. You vocalized it way better than I probably could have, which is okay. It's kind of cool to see these what if stories like play out, but like again, there's not much that we're going to take away from it.
Well, the downside. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go.
Oh, I was just going to say the downside behind what if stories, you have to contain it all in one story, all one comic, and so it's hard to do a one shot like that, and you're kind of constrained to just one thing, or one thing. You're constrained to telling a full story in one issue, and and you have to cover a lot in just those 20 or so pages.
But like a really good what if story, I think, in pertaining it just to Jean, they have things like what if Phoenix hadn't died? You know, they pose really interesting questions that was happening in the mainstream Marvel universe. With this one, I don't think I've ever wondered what if the O5 kept their memories. You know, I think it was a really satisfying, and I don't think there was ever an empty thread there. And again, I think it doesn't feel like our Teen Jean here. Teen Jean had definitely learned her lesson, and here she just again seems angry. And my question is, why doesn't she at this point? Xavier would have met with Moira and Magneto about Krakoa, about the multiple lives. Why isn't Jean like, wait a minute, you knew about Krakoa, you know about this thing called Krakoa very early on. I need to get this answer from you. You know what I mean? Because if we establish Krakoa earlier, then we can protect it, you know, by the time we get to Orcus. It's just something like that.
Well, and I'm not a big fan of what if stories either. And so to have this be part of the Fall of X timeline, or the Fall of Light, excuse me, for this to be part of the Fall of X line event, yet it doesn't take place in the present, like you said earlier, what the hell's the point? It just feels like I hate these nostalgia issues or miniseries that Marvel's doing. It honestly just feels like they are just trying to have as many books in the market as possible. And this, unfortunately, to me, feels like another nostalgia issue that just has the Fall of X. And I may be wrong. Maybe next issue or the issue after that might tie in more, but this issue does not tell me that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see where it goes. Listen, it's a strong enough start where I don't like it, but I definitely had my expectations curbed. I remember last year when they were doing the Jean Grey Judgment Day tie-in, I was like, oh, they're going to lean in heavily into Phoenix and the mythos, and, you know, the marketing copy promises they're going to answer all of our questions regarding Jean and the Phoenix, and it didn't at all. So my expectations were rock bottom for this, and because they were rock bottom, I'm like, you know what? This wasn't bad at all. I actually quite enjoyed it. So
you can go nowhere but up.
Yeah, I can't go anywhere but up. So I don't know. I mean, again, but I don't want to take away from Louise Simonson, who is a very talented writer.
Exactly.
And again, I think if we, no shade to Chris Claremont, if we had brought someone in like Chris Claremont, we've been like, oh, the voice just doesn't work with modern storytelling. But Louise Simonson is absolutely at home here with her storytelling.
Thankfully, nothing feels too dated, which is really bad when it comes to having old timey writers come in to write a modern story.
Yeah, I mean, I know when Claremont comes back to write an issue, I'm like, oh God, it's just like, again, it's just antiquated ways of telling a story that are no longer applicable. But Louise Simonson,
I hope you have an hour free.
Oh, I know, man, I can't go through all that dialogue, but I'm pleasantly surprised with it. Let's see where it goes. I'm trying to think, what is that moment that Jean is going to find? Is it going to be an actual moment in her history, or is it going to be like an epiphany, like a self-discovery?
There
Like, you know
wasn't
what?
one.
There wasn't one. I was always this powerful, wonderful human, and
I was
I
always
can come back.
badass.
Yeah, I was always badass, and now I can come back. And I wonder if there
That's
is
kind
a
of been the
moment we're going to
problem
get.
though lately, is like they've kind of portrayed her as this perfect woman that is so powerful that no one can defeat. And she is powerful, but there hasn't been any, they don't show her with many flaws. Or
Yeah.
at least lately. And
No,
maybe
no.
I don't know if I'm the only one that's been saying that, but I just feel like in her latest um especially during this Krakoa era, or I guess maybe since she's returned in Phoenix Resurrection, that's just how she's been portrayed.
I think she was really great in X-Men Red. I think she was adjusting to a world that was very different than the one she had left behind. Krakoa, I'm going to say I don't think she's gotten enough character development in Krakoa. I think she's just sort of been an accessory. Yeah, she's just been an accessory to the scene, whether it's, exchanging words with Emma or being there with Cyclops or having a menage a trois on Krakoa. So I welcome some more screen time for her. She was dead for 16 years. We had no Jean Grey stories for 16 years, almost 2 decades. So
that sounds like hell.
for me, it was hell.
Oh, I bet.
But I think I'm curious to see where they're going to go with her here. I kind of, if there was a moment, I could say that I think things went wrong. I'm going to say it was probably somewhere around AVX. I hope they go back to that moment where Cyclops turns into dark. Yeah, well, editorial, but Cyclops
editorial went wrong. She comes in and goes all meta and takes down Marvel.
But I love that. This is why we have you on. Bravo on that. But I think that moment where Cyclops sees her and she goes, "Let go, Scott. Let's go. Let go." I think she would be like, maybe I should have intervened a bit more here, if they acknowledge that. Again, it's kind of hard to pick which moment, because as of issue 3 will be post Madeline Pryor, and she was dead for almost 2 decades. I don't know where are you tying the mythos? So if I would think, against AVX, that moment is where I would want her to look back at it and be like, something went wrong here, the AVX Messiah hero. But I don't know. Let's see how it goes. Again, I don't know why she didn't call out Xavier for knowing about Moira and potentially Krakoa. So that would have been something if I was looking for a moment in the past to reinforce Krakoa, make sure no one dies. I'd be like, you guys knew. I mean, you guys knew about Krakoa.
Well, maybe that was just an editorial thing.
Well, anyway,
sorry, I'm such a.
We complain about editorial all the time on here. It is what it is. I wish they would hire editors who really do know these stories more than the readers, or have a better understanding or take than the readers. And then when they get caught not knowing something, we turn into toxic fandom. It's like, no, we just read the stories you gave us and we were so impassioned by it. I don't want to be shady, but I was at an event recently and there was someone from Marvel there, not specifically editorial, but let's say one of the writers. And I was shocked at how little they knew about the X-Men. And they're writing X-Men. And I was like, not even knowing some basic broad strokes about the X-Men. And I'm not saying you need to be 100% diehard X-Men to know, but there is a problem when fans and readers know more about this shared universe, this IP, than the people who work on it. I do think, I do feel strongly that they should be the ones who have a better understanding than we do. And if not, you can learn through the magic of Wikipedia, right? Like, or
the many writers that you're writing with, or your editor, like it's frustrating.
It is a frustrating time, but I mean, listen, this is not one of those. I there's no doubt in my mind that Louise Simonson knows Jean, cares about Jean, and wants to tell a compelling Jean story.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Anything else you want to cover? What's going on with you? Tell me. You're killing it on Masters of Comic Books. Like, that Instagram grew tremendously the second I stopped fiddling with it.
No, it's just, I mean, it wasn't because of you that it started kind of hitting it. I mean, it was just one post, and then all of a sudden it started going well. But yeah, things are going great. I'm on Master Comic Books, at Master Comic Books on Instagram and Threads, I guess. Um, but all it is,
Shrug.
I don't know. But it's just reviews. I just do reviews and try to interact with as many people as I can, as many followers as I can. I just love reading comic books and I love doing analyses of them and everything. It's just really fun and I'd be lost without comics. And so I appreciate all the engagement that that Masters has brought me, and I've got to meet a lot of wonderful people, both creators and readers as well. And so I'm just very thankful, I
I love
guess.
that. Oh, that's perfect, man.
Well, thanks.
Anything you want to plug? Anything else? You good?
As of right now, no. Just please look at my reviews and follow me on Instagram. That's about it. I mean, that's all I have time for, really. Work and life gets in the way a lot, and it's hard for me to record. But I can always write and whenever I want, because sometimes it just comes out of nowhere.
You are my favorite human being to discuss comic books with. I love you so much. I love all of your reviews, and I am so happy we got to talk about Jean Grey in great detail today. Everyone slide into Cole L's DMs at Masters of Comic Books on Instagram. Tell him how much you love Jean Grey. Just spam him with all your Jean Grey love.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll consume it, and then I'll be a Jean Grey lover.
And then Power of X-Men, things happen as they happen every morning. I'm like, I think it would be really great if we interview this person, and then it happens. So, on the
That's literally
podcast,
that's how this video happened.
Yeah, it was like, let's just review Jean Grey. But we are going to be at New York Comic Con. We're going to be discussing everything. We're going to be covering New York Comic Con in great detail. We have a couple creators on the podcast coming up that we're really excited for. We were talking with some actors, but with the strike, we're putting those talks on pause until everything is resolved. So please make sure you support our actors and our writers out there, and stay tuned for some really great stuff in the future at Power of X-Men. That's it.